47 million people watched that clip in under 18 hours. Less than 3% caught what Colbert placed on the desk before he pulled out the recorder. Nobody in that studio knew what Colbert had in the folder sitting to his left when the taping began. Not the warm-up comedian, not the band, not the producers watching from the booth on the third level, the ones who had approved every segment, every graphic, every clip in the rundown. The folder wasn't on the rundown. It appeared on the desk between rehearsal and taping, placed there by Colbert himself, without explanation, in the 17 minutes when the studio floor was technically clear. By the time the audience filed in, and the lights came up and the band counted in, the folder was just sitting there, waiting, and nobody asked about it, because by then, the whole country already knew what the week had produced, and maybe everyone assumed they already knew what was inside. They didn't. By the morning of April 8th, the numbers were already staggering. 3 networks had run the Easter egg roll clip on loop during prime time. Graphic departments at 2 major outlets had rebuilt Trump's Iran timeline with their own annotations, arrows, circles, color-coded dates, and run them as full-segment backdrops, while anchors spoke over them, without commentary. The Truth Social post from Easter Sunday had been printed in 6 different typefaces, across 4 different newspapers, as though changing the font might change what the words said. It did not. Trump's overnight response to Colbert's segment had arrived in the same pattern as his response to Kimmel. Capital letters compounding, exclamation marks multiplying, each denial longer and more specific than the one before it, until the denials themselves became a kind of confession, the sheer volume of them drawing more attention to what they were denying than silence ever could have. And underneath all of it, underneath the clip and the timeline and the overnight posts and the network graphics, there was the image that would not leave, the Easter Bunny standing to the president's left, while the president described the obliteration of a country, while the brass band played, while the children ran across the lawn. That image was the geometry of the week, and Colbert had understood it before anyone else put it into words. You have to understand what the Late Show studio feels like on a night when Colbert has decided something. It has a specific atmosphere, the band a little tighter, the warm-up a little shorter, the particular focus of a room where the people who work there have seen the host in rehearsal and know that what is coming is not going to be a standard monologue. The audience picks it up without knowing they've picked it up. They sit slightly forward. They are quieter between laughs. They are paying attention in a different way than usual, the way you pay attention when you sense that someone is about to show you something real. Colbert walked out to his usual reception. He thanked the audience. He straightened his jacket. He looked at his desk. The folder was there. He did not acknowledge it immediately. He started talking. He opened with the Truth Social post from Easter Sunday, not reading it the way Kimmel had read it, but describing it, the language, the structure, the specific geometry of the capitalization and the exclamation marks, and the phrase, "Praise be to Allah," arriving at the end of a war ultimatum, like a benediction from a man who had clearly never considered how the two things sounded together. You could feel it before you could name it, Colbert said. Something in the rhythm of that post, the way it accelerated toward the bottom, told you this wasn't strategy, this wasn't a calculated provocation. This was a man typing in real time, and the real time was not good. He looked at the audience with the expression of someone confiding something they've been carrying. And then, he said, he went to the egg roll. He played the clip. The studio received it the way the studio always receives that clip. The laugh, starting in the first 5 seconds at the sheer absurdity of the visual, then quieting as Trump's words continued past the point where they could be laughed at, then arriving at the specific stillness that follows when comedy becomes something heavier without warning. Colbert let it run to the end, the brass band still audible, the bunny still visible. He looked at the audience for a moment. "That," he said quietly, "is the geometry. That is the specific shape this administration has built, piece by piece, until the shape is so visible that you can't explain why it took this long to see it." He let the words sit. Then he reached for the recorder. It was a small digital voice recorder, the kind a journalist carries. He placed it on the desk between himself and the camera with the deliberateness of someone who has rehearsed the placement. Not careless, not theatrical, just precise, the way a surgeon places an instrument. He pressed play. What came out of the recorder was Trump's voice, not the Easter egg roll clip, not the Truth Social post, something older, a 2015 rally recording. Trump describing Iran in terms that directly contradicted every position he had taken in the last 72 hours. The same voice, the same cadence, describing the same country in the opposite terms. The audience didn't gasp. They did something quieter. A low murmur, the sound of a room connecting dots it hadn't expected to connect tonight. A woman 3 rows back covered her mouth briefly. A man in the 5th row shook his head once, slowly, and kept shaking it. Colbert looked at the recorder. "The geometry doesn't lie," he said. Even when every person in the room does. He picked the recorder up, turned it over once in his hand, set it back down. Then, without shifting his expression at all, he said, "He is the only president in history who has threatened to obliterate a country and then pivoted to egg prices in the same breath." The studio lost it, not immediately. There was a half-second delay, the delay that happens when a line arrives in a context so dense with real weight that the laugh has to travel through the weight before it can surface. And then it surfaced, all at once, the kind of audience release that isn't just about the line but about every moment that preceded it. The clip, the recorder, the geometry of the geometry. And the line was the door, and the whole room walked through it at once. Colbert sat through the laugh with the particular stillness of a man who knew it was coming and is not performing patience. He was just waiting. The way you wait after you've placed something down and know it will take a moment to land. He moved into the timeline quietly. The rolling deadlines. Tuesday becoming Wednesday, 48 hours becoming 72 hours, becoming an open horizon of threat without resolution. He laid them out without embellishment. Date, statement, outcome, date, statement, outcome. The repetition was the point. The audience received each entry more quietly than the last, because by the fourth entry they understood that the list was not going to resolve, that it would simply keep accumulating, the geometry growing without ever completing itself. "Every deadline moves," Colbert said. "Every threat extends. Every ultimatum gets a sequel. And the country on the other end of it is a country of 87 million people." He paused. None of them were at the egg roll. One person laughed, then stopped. Colbert nodded, as though the stopping was the more accurate response. He picked up the folder. He opened it. Inside was a single printed page, Trump's overnight Truth Social response to the previous night's Late Show segment. He read it aloud in the same voice he had used for everything else in the monologue. Measured, unhurried, no decoration. Capital letters arriving as capital letters. Exclamation marks arriving as exclamation marks. The words doing exactly what they did, in the voice of a man who understood that the words required no assistance from him to become what they already were. When he finished, he folded the paper, placed it back in the folder, closed the folder. "The geometry is complete," he said. "What's on the table tonight was put there by one person, and it's been there the whole time." He looked at the camera, held it. "We just finally have enough light to see the shape." The clip from that segment, specifically the recorder moment, specifically the geometry line, spread across every platform before the show had finished airing, not in 12 pieces, in one. People shared it whole because cutting it felt like losing something. By morning, "The geometry doesn't lie" had become a caption, a hashtag, a phrase people were using in responses to Trump's 3 a.m. posts without explanation, because no explanation was needed. Trump's counterposts kept arriving, each one longer, each one louder, each one placed automatically by the platforms themselves beside the clip it was responding to. The composed host on one side, the all-capitals fury on the other, the contrast doing the work that no late-night writer had to do. The folder sat on Colbert's desk at the end of the show. The camera caught it in the wide shot as the credits rolled. Nobody moved it. The geometry was already out in the world. The folder had done its job. The people who subscribe to this channel don't come for drama. They come for the moments nobody else is willing to show. Join them. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. The next truth is already on the table.